Hello everyone! Yae will be one of the 7 older characters getting buffed with the release of Genshin Patch Luna 8, complementing the simultaneous release of snezhnaya and the new Stellar Conduct reaction in preparation for snezhnaya. Yae has been an alright unit since her release, but never really outstanding, as Fischl was generally a better off-field Electro character. But with the new buffs to Yae, she has become an incredibly powerful buffer and sub-DPS for Stellar Conduct teams. She became so strong that she is looking essential for the damage of any Stellar Conduct team, a role which may persist with the release of snezhnaya. So in this brief guide, I will be covering everything you need to know about the newly buffed Yae, including how her kit was upgraded, the best ways to build her potential best teams, and how valuable she looks in the meta both currently and in the near future. The new Stellar Conduct reaction is a core part of the character buffs. I will show a quick summary of everything that is involved with the new reaction here, but the main thing I want to emphasize in relation to the character buffs is that for everyone other than Mizuki, the majority of the new character buffs are only enabled when they are in the Radiant Stellar Conduct state, which requires you to be in a Polestar field created by triggering Stellar Conduct. And on the patch the buffs are being introduced, the only character that can enable Stellar Conduct for the team is snezhnaya. Thus, in Patch Luna 8, you must have snezhnaya on the team in order to access the majority of the character buffs for the older units, but in the future there will be new characters that you can use, potentially including Cryo Traveler, that can enable the use of Stellar Conduct. Now, let's go over what kind of buffs Yae received. Her original kit was very simple. You use her skill 3 times to set up 3 turrets for maximum off-field electro damage, and then her burst dealt damage, but it consumed all the on-field turrets to increase its damage, so you would have to immediately use 3 skills again after using her burst. Yae's buffs gave her a lot more quality of life and gave her a lot of off-field damage potential for the new Stellar Conduct teams. In terms of general quality of life in her base kit applicable to all of her teams, Yae's turrets now last 10 seconds longer for a total of 24 seconds, and her burst no longer consumes her turrets to deal more damage. The turrets just need to be present to enable the damage buff, so you don't have to triple skill immediately after her burst anymore. But Yae's kit also got some important mechanical changes. With her new and improved A1 passive, when Yae has 3 turrets present on the field already, and then you use her skill again, on top of respawning a turret to refresh its duration, Yae will also now deal an additional instance of electro damage, and in Stellar Conduct teams, this extra damage will be direct Stellar Conduct damage. In addition, when the team triggers a Super Conduct or Stellar Conduct reaction, Yae's next turret attack will deal additional electro damage, which is considered direct Stellar Conduct damage when Radiant Stellar Conduct is active. With enough cryo on the enemy, Yae can deal an additional Stellar Conduct attack with every wave of her turret hits. The first turret hit will apply electro and trigger Stellar Conduct, and then this activates her new passive, making her second turret deal additional Stellar Conduct damage, and then the third hit will just be regular electro damage. Then it just repeats this pattern. Teams may not always have enough cryo application for this pattern to always occur, which will result in around 1, maybe 2 less Stellar Conduct hits every rotation, but regardless, this passive allows Yae to deal significant off-field Stellar Conduct damage in the new Stellar Conduct teams. For her talent leveling priority, you can just focus on leveling her skill. Her burst can be useful for her non-Stellar Conduct teams, but in specifically Stellar Conduct teams, it doesn't look worth using for damage, and it is arguably still around DPS neutral even at high Yae constellations. Speaking of constellations, C1 now additionally gives the team 50% Electro and Stellar Conduct damage bonus for 10 seconds after Yae triggers Super Conduct or Stellar Conduct, or she deals Stellar Conduct damage. C2 now additionally gives Yae and the active character an elemental mastery buff based on the level of Yae's turrets. They should just be at max level, so this is a 200 EM buff for Yae and the active character. C4 now gives Yae additional energy when her turrets hit enemies and makes her burst deal more damage. And lastly, C6 now also gives 200% crit damage to all of Yae's Stellar Conduct damage. Overall, even as a sub DPS, Yae's constellations, especially her early ones like C1 and C2, are quite good for any Stellar Conduct team because they enable Yae to grant powerful buffs for the team, valuable for any Stellar Conduct DPS like snezhnaya, Wriothesley, and Cyno. And Yae's constellations are available for free with the selectable constellation event, something that is heavily recommended to get her C1 or C2. For Yae's new best builds in her new Stellar Conduct teams, for weapons that give crit, attack, and or EM are good because they buff Stellar Conduct damage. However, weapons that give regular damage percent are worse off because it doesn't buff Stellar Conduct damage. Her signature will be her best weapon option as it did get buffed to increase Stellar Conduct damage as well. Other 5-star stat sticks are also fine to use, such as Nefer's signature, Varesta's signature, and the newly buffed Wriothesley's signature. For 4-star weapons, Witsith is one of her best choices because of its crit damage substat and damage buffing passive, though the elemental elemental damage buff can be somewhat of a miss versus the attack and EM buffs. The battle pass weapon Sacrificial Jade is usable as well. For artifacts, because Yae does a lot of stellar conduct damage in her new stellar conduct teams, her new best set will be 4-piece Disenchantment, which gives stellar conduct damage percent and crit rate with its 4-piece. Alternative artifact set options include 4-piece Gilded Dreams, 2-piece 2-piece sets, and 4-piece Golden Troop. Since Yae won't be the majority of a team's damage in a stellar conduct team, when looking at the entirety of the team's damage, the new set gives a slight overall team damage increase. But when looking at Yae's personal damage specifically, it is decently better, so you will eventually want to get a solid 4-piece Disenchantment set for Yae in stellar conduct teams. For main stats, Yae wants Attack Hourglass, Attack Goblet, and Crit Circlet. No Electro Damage Goblet because that doesn't increase stellar conduct damage. If you have a good Elemental Mastery, Hourglass, or Goblet, you can use 1 attack and 1 EM main stat. And if you have an attack buffer like Nicole on the team, 1 EM and 1 attack main stat will be better for damage. EM main stats do get worse if you have C2 Yae though, since it gives her an extra 200 EM. For substats, you want Crit, Attack, and EM. EM substats can be better than attack when using an attack buffer like Nicole. Yae doesn't use her burst in stellar conduct teams, so you don't have to worry about building any energy recharge. Lastly, for Yae's best teams, her current existing Dendro and Overload related teams did get better with the buffs, especially in terms of quality of life. However, where Yae is extremely powerful is in the new Stellar Conduct teams, which the majority of the buffs enable for her. She is very strong because she provides off-field Electro application, deals significant off-field Stellar Conduct damage, and provides team buffs with her early Constellations, making her a core support to any Stellar Conduct team. For example, Sandrone teams with C1 Yae deal significantly more damage than if you don't have Yae, but have to use someone like Fischl. The newly buffed C6 Beidou is also an alternative to Yae if you don't have her, but the damage difference is still heavily in favor for Yae. Same thing applies to Wriothesley and Sino Stellar Conduct teams. Yae provides so much to these teams, and any alternatives will be worse in damage. Now when future Stellar supports release in Snezhnaya, Yae's importance to Stellar Conduct teams will decrease because there will be new strong teammate options. However, since she provides so much to Stellar Conduct teams, it is very likely that she just remains on the team and other supports like Nicole, Escoffier, Chi-Chi, etc. will get replaced first. Now with C2 Yae, which gives an EM buff to the active character, she can be a viable last slot support for a DPS that likes EM outside of Stellar Conduct teams such as Nefer. She looks fine in this role as she is easy to play and looks to be similar in strength to Nahida, but Yae is worse for the team's energy since Nahida generates Dendro particles. And an optimized Sucrose and C2 Nilou, especially with vertical investment into your Nefer, should just be better for damage. Overall, Yae, in my opinion, got the strongest buffs out of the 7 buffed characters. While her Dendro and Overload teams only got a small improvement, Yae is now a very strong and important support for any Stellar Conduct team because of her off-field Electro application, solid Stellar Conduct damage, and team buffs with Constellations, which are available for free with the selector and is heavily recommended to get. And because she does so much for these teams, when new Stellar supports release in Snezhnaya, though they will definitely lessen her importance in Stellar Conduct teams since the new supports will be competitive teammate options, Yae is very unlikely to get replaced soon, since there are other support slots you would replace first. Yae will be rerunning on a special Light Trace Wish banner in patch Luna 8, so one question a lot of people have is, should they pull Yae for Stellar Conduct teams if they don't have her yet? And I think the answer to this isn't that clear at the moment and really depends on a lot of things. It is true that Yae is very important for Stellar Conduct teams, but the banner itself isn't ideal. The banner doesn't share pity with normal limited banners, but only with the Chronicled Wish banner, so you would have to be okay spending your pulls on it, and also be fine with potentially losing your 50-50 on Sino, Wriothesley, Chi-Chi, or Mizuki. In addition, you shouldn't plan on just getting C0 Yae. If you want to plan to pull your first Yae, you should also plan to get her C1 for free from the Constellation Selector event. If for some reason you can't get a free Constellation of her because maybe you're a new player and you don't have enough time to complete the 8-week requirement to get the Constellation, then her pull value would definitely decrease, as you would have to rely on HOYOverse repeating this event again, which isn't 100% confirmed. And finally, even though Yae will likely not get replaced with new Stellar supports, they will almost certainly be competitive alternatives to her, depending on their kit and power level. So I think the smartest decision is to wait for 7.0 beta information about the next upcoming characters before pulling to ensure you have the most information possible before potentially sending it for Yae. That's everything I wanted to cover about the newly buffed Yae. Big thanks to theorycrafters MeowTews, Talah, and Frost for all their reference calcs and their help with the creation of this guide. If you enjoyed this quick and concise guide, consider liking the video or sub to the channel so you don't miss out on similar guide videos in the future. Feel free to leave any questions you have in the comments, and with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.